Welcome to another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. Grab your popcorn, your beverage of choice or drink of choice, cup of coffee, maybe a cup of tea, glass of red wine. Don't forget the Kool-Aid for the kids. Call your mama and your papa, your grandmama and your grandpapa, your aunties and your uncles, your nieces and nephews, your siblings, your neighbors and your friends. Let them know that Simon Says is on. Buckle up. We'll be right back. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode. Welcome back. As per usual, get a little bit of updates, some current affairs, and we'll see if we could get to a new story. But the NDC, I was so busy. It's been difficult to get back there. It's been difficult. Now, concerning the allegations of the Taraba men on sexual harassment and the touching of staff, the female staff in various hotels inappropriately, several reports were made to supervisors, to the RGPF, and lawyers were engaged. According to the New Today, and if you look on the screen, you'll see a copy of that, the editorial to the New Today newspaper in its last weekend's volume, 18, number 28, the editorial. And I'm quoting here, I'm actually going to read from the editorial. Let me get my glasses, pretty small. The New Today received credible information that some of the Nigerians were involved in some kind of sexual harassment of our women folks. One business operator had to come to the rescue of a female employee who was approached by a Nigerian who was described as a billionaire. He did not touch the employee, but was constantly barraging her until the store owner threw him out of the premises. The full editorial is posted there. You can read all of it. With all of this, nothing from the Prime Minister and Minister of National Security. We have not heard from him, but do we expect to hear from him? He goes mute on things like that. He is the one who unleashed 220, according to him, 220 Nigerians on us. I have never heard of any country who had imported or have imported 220 individuals, immigrants from any country, and offload them in their country like that. 220, and that's what they telling us. We're not sure. The RGPF, however, on Saturday, the 30th of May, 2026, published a press release. And according to them, there was one a couple of days before. I have not seen it, but I'll read this one to you, which says, Royal Grenada Police Force press release, Saturday, the 30th of May, 2026. Update on allegations regarding hotel workers. The Royal Grenada Police Force wishes to inform the general public that further to the RGPF's press release issued on the 28th of May 2026 of a complaint with regards to allegations of hotel workers being sexually abused by visitors. One formal complaint related to the matter has since been received. Preliminary inquiries revealed, and listen carefully, preliminary inquiries revealed that the complaint did not amount to sexual assault. However, police intervention was sought for the purpose of issuing a warning to the individual concerned. The RGPF remains committed to investigating all reports of sexual abuse, exploration, and other criminal activities. We continue to encourage anyone who may have information regarding such matters or who believe they may have been the victim of a criminal offense to contact the Criminal Investigations Department at 440-3921, Police Emergency at 911, or the nearest police station. The cooperation of the public is essential in ensuring the allegations of this nature are properly investigated and addressed. Preliminary inquiries revealed that the complaint did not amount to sexual assault. However, police intervention was sought for the purpose of issuing a warning to the individual concerned. Now, my first question is to the police is, who sought your intervention? Right? Who sought your intervention? Secondly, did you have the contact for the accused? Because you said you contacted the accused and warned them. As far as we know, the Nigerians from Taraba State, and they were proud. They were carrying their Taraba headbands marked Taraba. As far as we know, they left on the morning of Wednesday the 27th, May 2026, at around 2 a.m. in the morning. Or is the accused one of the ones who are still on the island of Grenada? Yes, Grenadians. Yes, you've heard me. There are Africans who came on that flight. Among the 220, according to the Prime Minister, that are still on island. And have taken up residence in a house on Hummingbird Drive in Lansepine, St. George's. The house allegedly belonged to Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. So Simon Says is calling on Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell to come and clarify for us, come and tell the people. Yeah, matter who the house for at this point. But tell us if there are Africans who came on that flight for from the dance troupe that came to exchange as a cultural exchange. That's what we were told initially. It was a dance troupe coming to perform, right? So we need to know why they stayed back. What is their purpose? What is the purpose for them? staying back? How long are they going to stay? Or should I ask that? Because as far as we understand it, quite a few of them that came on that aircraft was carrying Grenadian passports. So I guess we have no reason to ask them how long they're going to stay. If they are Grenadians, we can't ask them that, right? So we have some Caribbeans, Nigerians here in Grenada in a house. They're kept in a house in Lansepine. And if you look on your screen, but let me tell you all about this. The roads were paved, the road of Hummingbird Drive. And I've been in there, I know the road was really bad in Lansepine. But the government of Grenada do not fix Lansepine roads, especially the side roads, the by roads. But that road was paved for some reason by the government of Grenada. I also understand that the Prime Minister visits almost every evening that house with the Africans. If you look on your screen, I got a picture of the road and the house that is supposedly the house where they are kept. Now, on May, and listen carefully, I mean, things adds up after a while. On May the 8th, I received a text from my Nigerian contact, right? And I thought nothing of it because I didn't think it could happen. And I'm going to share some of it with you. Now, first, let me share with you what the governor, right, Agubu Kifas of Taraba State, Nigeria, what he said concerning Prime Minister Deacon and this cultural exchange, right? He is sending a cultural delegation to Grenada as part of reciprocal cultural and development ties established during Grenada's Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell's recent visit to the state. This initiative stems from pledges made by PM Mitchell to strengthen cultural exchanges and economic partnership between Grenada and Taraba State. Key details of the visit: delegation composition, cultural troops from Taraba State, likely numbering around 150 people based on the scale of similar state cultural events hosted locally, which involve large groups of performers, artists, and support staff. Did this group performed anywhere in Grenada where persons could have gone and sit down and see their cultural exposure, the dancing? I might have missed it. So I'm asking the public, were you able to go see this group or dance from Taraba State performing anywhere in Grenada? Now the timing, scheduled for May 2026. Remember, I told you that last week. There was no specific date, right? They were coming for May 2026, aligning with ongoing efforts to deepen bilateral relations. Purpose: to showcase Taraba's rich cultural heritage through performances, exhibitions, and traditional displays, fostering tourism, mutual understanding, and developmental collaboration in key economic sectors. This here, right? So we were fooled into believing that there was going to be some cultural exchange. And we are still waiting for this to happen. But why do we need 220 plus persons to come in as a dance troupe, to come in for cultural exchange, right? I mentioned to you before what Taraba State excels in, and it was rigging of elections. They have several articles. 2019, even the governor rigged the election. In 2020, 21, again, there are articles you can go, Google, you can read them up. There are experts in rigging elections, right? And so, no wonder the prime minister frequented there, because the NDC administration cannot win the next general election on the ground here in Grenada just by their performances and what they have done over the past 4 years. Cannot. We know it and they know it. So it's the diaspora and the Africans. They're bending on to do so for them, right? So as I was saying to you guys, that I got this message from my contact in Nigeria, on Nigeria, right? And it says, "Good morning, Sister J. It looks like Grenadians are really going to be fed cultural troop dancing for dinner. I was just told that Agubu Kifas is coming to visit Grenada with 150 of his people this month. And as May, I called someone else who also heard this. They are coming to dance for Grenadians. Cultural exchange is nice. But can you guys eat cultural exchange for dinner, right? Also, I was also told that they are coming to help your prime minister win his elections. I cannot imagine how, right? And the conversation continues. So I said, how are they going to help him win the elections? And my contact said, I am questioning that now. Now, they're telling me Grenada is not Nigeria unless they will come and not leave the island until after the elections. All his colleagues, PMs, are engaged in some type of development, but Grenada is focusing on hosting dance troops. What a sad state of affairs for Grenada to have such poor leadership. I don't understand the election part yet. It is widely known that to win the last election in Nigeria, many people were imported across the northern border. After the elections, they refused to leave and became the terrorists Nigeria has been plagued with to this day. Continued, approximately 80% of its 4 million population of Taraba State, Nigeria, lives in extreme poverty, affecting education, infrastructure, healthcare, and electricity access. But they are coming to dance in Grenada. I am sure if Grenada published the list of diplomatic passports issued this year, we would find that the governor's Grenadian's passport has now been converted to a diplomatic passport now that he is a cultural ambassador. And again, later on, she said, I have heard through Ninja Grapevine that his friend is bringing these people to be left on island to and integrated for what they do best in Nigeria. They need to leave after their dancing, right? Let me see if there's something else. They are coming on a chartered plane. Who knows who they are? No external vetting will be done, as they are not stopping in London or Miami. Very curious. This is not a good sign, sis. Only God knows how many already on the island from chartered flights. This may be their strategy, rig ninja style. And the conversation was centered around that. But I ignored it really, because I'm like, nah, man. They come in, they said the plane waiting for them, and they're leaving 2 days later. Right? Thing on. We've heard of taxi men saying most of them carried Grenadian passports, and they're gone. Or so we thought. Only to be notified and reliably informed yesterday. And that was Wednesday. Yesterday, Wednesday, the 3rd of June, 2026, right? That there are Africans who came on that plane, who stayed back, and is living on Hummingbird Drive in Lansepine. The thing is, we have no idea how many Nigerians came here. We could take what the Prime Minister tell us, but remember it started at 150. Then I heard 182 or 3, somewhere there. Then I heard 197. Then we heard 200. And then the Prime Minister came and told us it was 220, right? I mean, you can have for yourself in this clip.
Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell says the recent visit by the African delegation has provided a significant boost for Grenada tourism sector and economy. Speaking on the impact of the visit, Prime Minister Mitchell revealed that more than 220 Nigerians recently traveled to Grenada via a chartered Boeing 777 aircraft, which was parked at the Maurice Bishop International Airport.
Excess of 220 Nigerians principally visited us, right? They would have had to charter a Boeing 777 to get here. It's still parked at the airport, right? So we are talking here significant economic boost in terms of tourism.
Mitchell described the trip as a major economic opportunity for Grenada, explaining that the visitors stayed at several local hotels, including Silver Sands, Spice Island Beach Resort, Royalton Grenada, and Radisson Grenada Beach Resort. The Prime Minister stated that the delegation's presence generated increased activity across the tourism sector through hotel accommodation, taxi and transportation services, restaurants, and other local businesses.
Silver Sands and Spice and Royalton and Radisson. That is business that these hotels otherwise would not have had. We've had significant transportation, taxi, logistics to move them, food.
According to Mitchell, Nigeria represents a wealthy and growing market with enormous potential for Grenada's tourism industry. He said the government believes visits like these can help Grenada expand into the African and Middle Eastern tourism markets, while creating new economic opportunities for the country.
Just from a tourism perspective, it's a large market, Nigerians in particular, estimated population 300 million, almost rivaling the United States in terms of population size. Nigerians are known for traveling. It's a very wealthy country. So there's enormous, just on a tourism perspective, opportunities for us to grow the African Middle Eastern market, and that's part of what we believe a trip like this has the potential to do.
Prime Minister Mitchell added that Grenada must continue strengthening its relationship with Africa as the continent continues to grow in economic importance on the global stage. Reporting for GBN News, Shania McIntosh.
Thank you, Shania McIntosh of GBN. We don't know. And why? These Africans did not go through immigration nor customs. They were picked up on the tarmac by coasters and taken to their various hotels, to the different hotels where they stayed while on island. What economic boost we get? Look around. The month just end and everybody is complaining. All businesses, small and large. Every event, some have canceled, and what came through? Bus. Because people don't have the money, the cash flow, to spend on anything extra besides eating, clothing, and trying to keep a roof over their heads. No extra money, nothing. The place dead. So where is the economic boost? The question is, who paid for their hotels? Who paid for their living expenses and their transportation and their eating? Who paid for that, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell? Who paid for the chartered flight? What came on that chartered flight besides Africans? We have no idea. We have no idea what they carried because it did not go through customs. You couldn't touch them. You couldn't speak to them. They were not allowed. The immigration were not allowed to speak to them. Straight from the aircraft to the buses, the coasters, to wherever they're going. How we know it was 220 and not 270 about what the plane can hold? How we know that? How many of them is in Lansepine and wherever else? How many? We don't know. How many stayed back? But they're Grenadians because they hold Grenadian passports. Right? The question must be asked. How many of them hold Grenadian passports? And what was the criteria to get these passports? They came in with cash. It could have been more than 10,000 US dollars. How do we know? They were billionaires, and we understand it on the flight. They were throwing money up at Pier 57, throwing monies at the performers, the local performers, throwing. Everybody had all the chiefs had their big envelopes. According to our immigration form, they have to declare the monies. They didn't go through immigration and customs. The envelopes of monies and maybe bags too. We don't know how many African came. We don't know what they carried with them when they get off the plane. And we don't know how many left and how many remain. And what is the purpose of the ones who remained? They left at 2 a.m. At 2 a.m. on the morning, Wednesday, I believe it was the 28th of May, 2 a.m., like thieves in the night. So we don't know. We don't have a clue. I got to get special people to come out to work, right? And there we are thinking, they all left. I hope the opposition is paying attention. Ask the hard questions. Pay attention to your voters list. What is, according to the taxi drivers, and I'm saying it again, they are carrying Grenadian passports, can't even pronounce Grenada properly. Now, Taraba State is best known for rigging elections, to whom it may concern. If you look on your screen, you'd see the infamous picture of Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his boys. Now, Randy Dolan is to your left, and next to him is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell. So Randy Dolan is the one in that vest, I think black in front and a kind of a bluish, purplish at the back with a white shirt and the darkers. That's Randy Dolan. Prime Minister Deacon is next to him, to his right, to his left. And forgive me, I'm left-handed, and so my right is my left and my left and my left is my right? And next to PM Deacon Mitchell, in the middle of the group is Trevor St. Bernard. He's the deputy chairman of the GDB board of directors, and seems to be lately Prime Minister's Deacon Mitchell travel partner, especially to Africa for some reason. And they fly in private jets, and so they come back from Africa. And remember, I said to you guys before, it's funny how even if the Prime Minister leaves here commercially through the UK, across to Africa, they never comes back commercially. They always come back in private jets. That's something for us to think about. According to Arsenio Hall, right? Now, after Trevor, it's Mr. William Batiste there in the yellow tees. That's the infamous William Batiste of the NLA, the National Lottery, who was just told to exit with our monies, all the embezzlement of the funds from the Lottery Authority. Him and his girlfriend, Cindy Henry, who is still in there as a managing director, call on the opposition to call for the removal of Cindy Henry as the managing director of the National Lottery Authority while there's a forensic investigation. That should take place. She was accomplice. They were lovers. They were the only two signatories on the NLA accounts, and they did their own thing with the monies. Traveled to France, to Paris, traveled to the US, all on NLA funds. Imagine they left here and said they're going to a meeting, a one-day meeting, spent 2 weeks, $36,000 later. 36,000 later, right? And after William Batiste, of course, to our right is Mr. Teddy St. Louis, the chief of staff of the Prime Minister, the chief of staff of the Prime Minister, the cement importer, the one whose company imported the 6,000 slings of cement from the Middle East, and of course, whose office was collecting the rent from the building that Mr. Batiste and Ms. Henry bought for the NLA with the NLA money on Melville Street. So you see the web, you see the web there, that it's thick, but that's the boys, and that's the circle, right? Now, you know, if I never did believe the saying, those who assemble resemble, I believe it now. until this Deacon Mitchell-led administration. I want to share with you this clip. Mr. Randy Dolan speaking on behalf of Project 500 as the project sponsor.
Agree, you would acknowledge, Mr. Dolan, that the laudable goal of building 500 houses a year, that was just not realistic.
It wasn't 500 houses per year, it was 500 houses. It was the initial term.
Just 500 houses period.
It was, that's the point. It was a starting period, a pilot to build, to get to 500 homes and then to scale that, right?
Did he say they never said 500 a year? Did he say that they said it was 500 period? Okay. But according to what was said before, okay, let's just say it was 500 and that's it, period. We are heading into year 5. And that's the final year of this term. And all we have is 12 houses, 12. So we got 12 in 4 years. Are we going to get 448 houses under the project in the next year? If we just going by what he's saying, they said 500, right? 500 in a year. That's if we're doing that. But we all know that the statement that Mr. Dolan made there is a lie. And I can't believe the host, Dr. Bob, allowed Mr. Dolan to get away with that big lie that it was 500 houses, period. He should have been called out on it. And I know if you're doing what you're doing, Dr. Bob, and you're following what's going on, you would know that it was, and you said it before, but you allowed him to tell you that it was 500 period, right? It was 500 houses per year, right? In the 2022 campaign, the political leader of the NDC, Deacon Mitchell, told us of his flagship project more than once, told us of it. You said it in his pocket meetings in St. David's, that it was 500 houses a year. And he explained it to us, what Project 500 was. Listen to this clip.
The National Democratic Congress has outlined the party's plans to address the country's housing issue if given the chance to govern Grenada following the June 23rd general elections. Political leader of the NDC, Deacon Mitchell, says under his leadership, housing materials will not be dropped off for people in need to be left without being used by the homeowner because the individual or family does not have the capacity to get the repairs done. He said instead people will be assisted with home repairs, especially the elderly and disabled.
Starting with the homes of our retirees, the homes of our senior citizens, and the homes of our disadvantaged persons, particularly persons who may be physically or mentally challenged. The next category of persons will then be particularly single mothers who are raising children on their own.
The NDC Mitchell said their priority will be increasing and improving the housing stock.
We are aiming to construct 2,500 homes. The homes will be made available for sale. The price ranges will vary depending on the size of the houses. The plans for the houses will be designed in such a way that they can be scaled up.
He said the NDC plan is to ensure that in the case of new houses constructed, there will be supporting facilities and amenities to create a proper village.
But ensuring that there are things like playgrounds for our children.
parks, ensuring that things like grocery stores are located close by, ensuring that even simple things like if you need a post office, that those things are located within the communities, ensuring that if there is a preschool is required, that a preschool is located within the community, ensuring that things like basketball courts, tennis courts, community centers are made part of the communities.
So you heard the Prime Minister there. 2,500 houses. Count. Divide that by 5. 500 a year. 2,500. You heard him. Now, he was going to do, they were going to do villages with these build villages, right? According to him, parks, basketball court, tennis court, playgrounds and parks, post office, grocery stores, kindergarten schools for daycares, included in these where these 500 houses would be built, right? For easy access. He also said that they would focus on the disabled, the elderly, and did he say single mothers? We'll come to some single mothers in a bit. Single mothers, right? You heard him clearly. 2,500 houses. But Mr. Dolan thought it was necessary to lie to Grenada and the world to say that it was 500 houses, period. And Mr. Bob let him, God, get away with that lie. He allowed him to bamboozle him and say, oh, it was 500, period. Yeah, it was 500, period. No, that wasn't it. That wasn't the campaign. Now, entering office, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, as the Minister of Finance, in the 2023 reading of the estimates and revenue and expenditure, the budget, told us, which was read in December of 2022, told us that the Project 500 was going to start in 2023. And there were estimates and allocations given for that project, $2.5 million to be built in Stony Gut, St. John.
Initiatives in this budget cycle include: 1, the Stony Gut Climate Resilient Housing Development Pilot Project, which aims to construct modern, high-quality, climate-resilient Grenadian-style homes in Stony Gut in the parish of St. John. Construction is expected to start in 2023, Mr. Speaker, and $2.5 million has been budgeted. Mr. Speaker.
Modern Grenadian-style houses. The first 500 in Stony Gut, St. John. Now, when that did not work out, the Prime Minister came back to us and told us that they were going to build prefab houses instead, right? The reason being, it's quicker because they're running out of time now. It's quicker, according to him, and cheaper. In a town hall in St. Patrick, this is what the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, told us.
So what we are hoping to do with these contractors is to use technology, modern technology, that can allow us to do prefab houses. That is, houses that are actually built or manufactured as much as possible in factories, and then what you're doing is you are installing the homes. So we would build the foundations, but you are literally installing the homes, installing the plumbing, installing the electricity and the other amenities. What that should allow is for a much more rapid, I'm going to use the word installation of the homes in a shorter space of time, where you can then do a lot of houses quickly and hopefully cheaply. We recognize that housing is a big challenge in Grenada. There is a current housing repair program that the government is running to assist persons in housing repairs. But this program has its challenges and it has its limitations. But we are nonetheless going to continue because we recognize that in some instances people are in truly desperate circumstances and we need to cater to them. But the program is not sustainable. And in the long run, it isn't really improving the housing stock in a sustainable manner. The average person builds a home once in their lifetime, for the most part. Maybe twice if you have an extended, if you go past the 70. And we need to build homes that can sustain, endure, and resist things like the hurricanes, resist things like termites, etc., etc. So, I can't see the screen from here, so I'm not so sure if you have the right. So, we promised Project 500. And we intend to deliver Project 500. So what we are hoping to do with these contractors is to use technology, modern technology.
You intend to deliver Project 500? When? Which wrongs? Not this wrongs. You promise not kept, right? Now, where are these sustainable projects? You condemning what you met and you can't replace it. You condemning what you met and you can't replace it. Where is your Project 500? It has now become Project 12. Project 12 in Dunfermline, St. Andrew, which was supposed to be model houses, which only looking to sell. So the prefab, so I hear nothing about modern Grenadian style houses anymore. Prefab houses at Dunfermline. And we got a clearer idea from the chairman of the Grenada Housing Authority, as he explained to us what Project 500 is.
Project 500, it's a government initiative to alleviate some of the stresses on the housing industry, to improve the housing stock. As you could appreciate, there's many reasons why persons are unable to build. It could be one, the availability of land. Two, it could be just the cost of building. So combining the two, Project 500 seeks to be able to find land for persons by having large areas of land and developing a community. So what we're trying to do is to have small homes, bigger homes, so that you have a wide range of persons and affordable homes. So if your person was trying to do it on their own, they would not have been able to afford a type of home like that. The quality of homes are such that it would stand up to the hurricane code, the building codes that we have here in Grenada. So it's more resilient. We take into consideration also in Project 500 that climate is changing, and we will try to bring in at a lower level climate smart techniques and material to improve the quality of the home. So we're not just building a regular home, we would try to have it with solar and some other facilities, water storing the facilities and so on, that you would not normally find in a regular housing project of our kind. So that's the difference between what we have done in the past and now. So this in a nutshell is Project 500, but we have 4 elements to Project 500. The first element deals with, we call it categories. So we say category A where the government or housing authority has land already for that. And in this case, we're starting off with Dunfermline. That is housing authority's land. That is it's been designated for homes for a lot of years now, and we already have a housing project up there. So we're just extending that area and using our land to put more homes. In that area, we have a test site that has started, and you would see it off the ground in terms of construction of the foundation during the month of October or towards the end of October. And should complete between December to January, depends on the speed. These are 17 homes. Okay. And from that, you would get, on the other side of the road, Housing Authority also have a further 15 acres, which we would develop and put probably about 75 units, individual homes, including 4 or 5 green spaces.
But that wasn't all. That wasn't all. Here is the Minister for MIT, the NDC acting Prime Minister designate, Andy Williams, as he spoke in a town hall in New York, enlightening the diaspora on Project 500.
And also, I spoke about the Chinese housing at the beginning, but we want to do some Grenadian style housing in the future. And when I say in the future, I mean starting next year. So we have a project called Project 500, and that project is being led by the Honorable Minister of Social Development, Philip Telesford. We have already identified lands in Beauchejou and other places. And the next step is to get developers to come, get local contractors to come, get the banks involved. And we're going to do a project called Project 500, where we are going to build 500 Grenadian-style housing. And when we do that, we are not going to stop there. We are not going to stop there. We are going to continue, and next 500, and next 500, and next 500, until we solve the housing situation in Grenada.
He even building more than Deacon. He building until they stop, they take care of their housing problem in Grenada. Real papi show. I think extempo is calling it lightly. It's just talk. So when Randy Dolan on the Bob report told the world that Deacon Mitchell and the NDC promised 500 houses in total, it's a blatant lie. It was a blatant lie. No shame. Just blatant deception and lies. But again, those who assemble resemble. And the assembly line is long. There's a magnet for crooks and conmen, for corruption, fraud, deception, and lies. Those who assemble resemble. Here is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell on regularization in 12 months.
Congress commits to regularizing the status of contract workers who are working for the government and Imani workers who are working for the government within 12 months of assuming office.
And here is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, the same Deacon Mitchell, saying they never said that.
We never said we would regularize the public service in 12 months. We said we would regularize it. And we have begun to do so.
And here is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, again, speaking of regularizing by the stroke of a pen.
In that position. Right. And I'm saying the job of the citizens, of the government, is to fight for its citizens, to protect its citizens, to encourage its citizens to be independent, not dependent, not vulnerable. So that is the challenge we face. And I'm saying it is solvable by the stroke of a pen.
Yep. Mr. Forrester is yep. Now here is Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, the same Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, not a clone, not a twin, an identical twin, saying he never said so.
When people want to make mischief, they're going around and saying, you say a stroke a pen, you can regularize everybody, you stroke a pen, regularize everybody. I never said that. I said there should be one public service. And I will say it again, there should be one public service.
He did say one public service, but he also said, and you heard him, by the stroke of a pen, where on earth, how can you mistaken one public service for by the stroke of a pen? How? So we just make that up out there. But you heard it for yourself. I play that to show you the resemblance with the Prime Minister and now Mr. Dolan. Why do? We have the facts. We have the tapes. The tapes don't lie. Receipts don't lie. We have them all. Well, can take them down, and they've been taking down things like crazy. Take them down. Go ahead. Take them down. We have them. So because they can deliver, they are now saying it was 500 period, as if they deliver 500. All we got was 12, right? You can't deliver 500. So you can't tick that box. According to the promises, we Grenadians are supposed to be the owners of 1,500 houses by now. Grenadian style houses, 1,500, with another 5 on the way for 2026, right? What we got was 12. And Grenadians are still waiting and hoping for low-income houses. You see the disabled and the elderly and the single mothers, they're waiting. Because you guys took the Chinese low-income houses or units and sell it. Sell it to middle and upper income earners. Here is a single mother of 6 complaining that even though she went to the authorities looking, begging, asking for a house, her home got damaged in the Hurricane Beryl. And though there are those who are receiving homes who didn't have a house to get damaged, who are living in areas in some cases where Hurricane Beryl did not affect. And they have houses, big houses. The social development guy in town, you have veranda, you have how much bedroom? Built one for himself. By the way, apparently he was charged and arrested for wood for wood. Y'all know what that means. Wood for wood. And they're keeping it on a down low. But there's nothing you could keep on a down low. For Simon says, forget it. Forget it. Now, let's look at the news item.
A single mother of 6 from Shantimel, St. Patrick, is making a desperate plea for assistance after Hurricane Beryl left her family living in unsafe conditions. The mother, who is raising 5 boys and 1 girl between the ages of 3 and 16, says the pillars of her home become dangerously unstable following the passage of the hurricane, leaving the structure unsafe for her and her children. She also says the family is in urgent need of a proper bathroom and toilet facility. The frustrated mother explained that she has been seeking assistance for quite some time, but has received no help. She says the ongoing situation has become emotionally and financially overwhelming as she struggles to provide a safe environment for her children.
I'm not asking for a mansion. My house got affected in Beryl and I went out asking for assistance. I was told I will get assistance soon as possible. They're looking for emergency assistance for me. Up to today, I haven't heard nothing, no call, nothing.
To earn extra income, the mother says she makes and sells fudge. However, the financial burden continues to grow. She revealed that she has since resorted to renting an apartment to provide temporary shelter for her children.
Not long I pleading, yeah. Not long I've been pleading. I pleading long. Not to say me somebody else just go out, go party. Each time I try to save, it's because a child fall sick or something or the other. And when the fathers contribute, I have to take this exact money, what they contribute for the children to help pay the bills, to help pay the rent. The rent is $500. Two room. And at the end of the day, it's not easy.
However, the monthly payments are placing an additional strain on her finances. Now she's appealing to the relevant authorities, members of the public, and businesses for help through building materials, financial contributions, or any form of support that can assist in making her home safe again.
$500. My salary is $1,200. By the time I get that and I pay me rent, I pay me bills, everything, I have nothing left. Absolutely nothing left. Because if I late on rent, I have to pay $50 for lateness.
Anyone willing to assist the family can contact the mother directly at 533-5239. The mother says her only wish is to provide a safe and a secure home for her children. Reporting for GBN News, Shania McIntosh.
Prime Minister, there goes a single mother with 6 children begging for help. You all like to talk about we giving hand up instead of handout. She's not asking for a handout. She have a job. She's making fudge. No amount of fudge she make could help her in this situation. She has 6 children. She's still trying. She ain't asking for a handout. She's asking for a hand up. A lot of talk about, oh, we ain't giving like the previous administration. We giving hand up instead of handout. There you go. All talk. All talk. You think the nation ain't looking? The people, they are quietly, some of them, more and more people speaking out now, but they are quietly paying attention to you guys, right? That's in St. Patrick there. Here is another one, my friends. Right there in St. Patrick. A single mother of 3 whose home got damaged by Beryl again was refused help and a stone's throw away. Build Back Better house was built. Well, let me say this. The Andal brothers, Joseph Andal and Adam Andal, who is his personal assistant or social development person who he is responsible for housing and everything else in St. Patrick West. This is a gentleman that was found guilty in corruption and all sorts of fraudulent acts in St. Patrick West when he did the same thing for Anthony Boswell under the NNP administration. As a matter of fact, when he was found, he was on the run. He had all kind of Carental and Cadiz and driving school, and he ran. I think he went to Trinidad or somewhere, but anyhow, he came back eventually. And in Grenada, nothing happens after a while. Ask Kenny Fullerton about that. Kenny Fullerton, they had one of the Prime Minister's advisor and chairman of the planning board. When you're on the run, and then you come back and nothing happens. And you just get in position, big position. All the criminals and the con men and the corrupt ones, and they get in more positions, they getting promoted, or big jobs, right? He came back. Same, his brother, Joseph Handel, used to be on platform talking about him, and he on platform talking about Joseph Handel. Now he come back, and sadly, Joseph Handel put him in the same position he was when he had to run, and he's doing the same things. Him, Joseph Handel, and his brother Adam Handel built a Build Back Better house for their brother. If you look on the screen, you see the brother's nice little Build Back Better house there, and a stone thrown away. So as you see on your screen, a stone throw away from the house the Handel brothers built for one of their brothers, for their brother. And as villagers say, it's locked up. He has never used it. Give it to the lady, the young lady there with the 3 children. Stone throw away. Look on your screen. You see where she is on the top, and look at the house. Give it to her. Give it to her. Now, as a bonus, I'm sharing with you some more of what Randy Dolan had to say about the Project 500 on the Bob report. Maybe you might be able to cipher some of the things he's been saying, because I had a hard time doing so. It's just more and more extemporing. Here we go.
I would like to just take this opportunity to say that we started with a pilot, 17 homes. We now have to scale that pilot, because think about how many houses do we build in Grenada a year, right? That goes through planning and goes through all of the process. It's not a lot. It's not a lot of structures that we build per year in Grenada. We understand the issues with building homes in Grenada. We understand it takes years off of your life, because it's so stressful sometimes. We understand that the way we build now is not sustainable in terms of the pricing. We have concrete shortages. We have many issues that plague our construction industry that's making building increasingly unaffordable and unachievable for many Grenadian families. So the idea is to get to, how do we build a pilot to transform the construction industry? So we started with a pilot now, 17 homes. We're going to get to 500 homes. And then from there, we want to start scaling the project up to sort of, again, transforming the way we build holistically on the island, right? That's the bottom line. So right now we started, and ultimately, if there wasn't an issue to solve, then there wouldn't be a need to do a pilot, right? And within that pilot, we have to start learning. We have to learn what technologies work best here, what don't work best. And then you also have to understand that a lot of these technologies have to be imported. A lot of the labor force has to be skilled up on it. We understand the issues with labor force in Grenada. So you have, and everybody is saying you the same thing. The skilled persons, they show up one day, they're gone for 2 weeks on another job. If they're very skilled, they're being pulled in multiple ways, and then there's not much others who are coming up behind them. So Project 500 is really about upskilling our labor force, building with alternative, more sustainable technologies, so we could transform the way we build holistically. So it starts with 17 homes. We understood the mistakes, understood the learning curves, and now we're able to sort of, affect or change, modify how we do things a little bit better to streamline the process so we can get the homes more affordable, and we're able to scale it with a labor force that is better trained on it, and a means that is more accessible for Grenadians, especially those who are currently priced out of the market. And the initial information coming back from the pilot already is that even though there were learning curves and delays and issues with labor, we were still able to get at least 12 other homes under 375 per square foot, which is like the minimum amount to build in Grenada. And these are homes that included climate resilient features like solar panels, low floor plumbing, etc., and very beautiful homes that anybody would be very proud to live in. So there is a lot of success coming from this, but now we have to scale it to make the homes more affordable by building by scale and ensuring that more of the labor force is equipped to build with these homes, with this type of technology, sorry. So that's the point here. Now we can scale up to when we do the phase 2, we're able to do more homes. And then by the time we get into the phase 3, we're building on other people's lands. And all of a sudden now we're surpassing 500, and we're going to 5,000 is ultimately where you want to go. But we understood that the limitations of construction that the government is trying to solve, it does take a little bit of time to get that right. We have to start planning for decades, not just 5-year cycles. We have to plan for the long term. So if you're going to start affecting a transformational change in something like construction, it does take a little bit of time to fix it, to get it right, and then get more private sector investment into the space so it alleviates the building issues that we have in Grenada.
When are you, Mr. Dolan, and Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell and his administration, his NDC administration, are going to get to 500 houses? So what average timeline you're thinking of? You are not speaking to NDC supporters alone. Are you forgetting that some of us are out here? Are you forgetting that there are some of us out here whose eyes are not covered with wool? Now, after hundreds of years, maybe thousands, you could say, of years, Mr. Dolan comes to us. And you can tell he knows nothing about construction, right? He's not an engineer. He's not a contractor. Wrong peg in square holes. He is chairman of the board of directors of tourism. I'm not even sure if that's his field. However, he is one of the boys. And he is here only talking about upscale. Upscale. And he comes to tell us what works here in Grenada and suggesting that bricks and mortar is a thing of the past, really. You hear him, right? Will you really, Mr. Dolan, go live in Dunfermline, as you suggested that any one of us would go? Would you go live in Dunfermline in one of those houses? You guys, really? It's all about the high accent, if you guys realize, right? And they could say anything, and the NDC squad will believe and praise and visionary and all that comes with it. It's as they put a recording inside them and just press play, right? High accent can't fool us. It can't bamboozle us. Project 500 is about upscaling our labor force, whatever that means. Build with alternative, more sustainable technology. What is that? What is that? What happened to the Grenadian style houses that Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell promised us in Stonygut? What happened to those houses?
in this budget cycle include: 1. The Stony Gut Climate Resilient Housing Development Pilot Project, which aims to construct modern, high-quality, climate-resilient Grenadian-style homes in Stony Gut in the parish of St. John.
According to Mr. Dolan, Grenadians are currently priced out of the market. So are you saying, sir, that these houses in Dunfermline are low-income houses? $230,000 to $500,000. That's $500,000, right? That is for the 2-bedroom to the 4-bedroom. Are those low-income houses? He also suggested that they're going from 17 to 500 and then to 5,000. And I quote, ultimately, they're going from 17 to 500 and then to 5,000. As some young people would say, Akrai. When it take you 4.5 years to give us, 4 years to give us 12 houses. And you talking about 5,000. All of us on this piece of rocket dead, rotten, buried before you could get to 500, much less the 5,000. Huh? Because you promised us since 2023. Project 500. You can't make 500, you're talking about 5,000. Real Comedy Central. Don't do us that. Don't do us that. Mr. Dolan continued.
You did mention that you acknowledged some mistakes along the way. What are those?
Well, of course, I mean, you have issues like, if you have a labor force that's not used to building with a specific type of material, they may have to put it up. They make mistakes. We have to reorder the product again, because some of it might not be usable. It takes a longer time to get the homes actually built because they're not as familiar. We did have some challenges as well with cement, because of the blasting telescope, for example, that then took months because we had to start finishing the roads, driveways, all of that by hand using a ransom. We couldn't pour. There were issues with shipping. The issue between with the United States and Venezuela with a bombing on the waters, a lot of boats didn't want to leave Trinidad. There are issues with delays from stuff coming from internationally. Just because, especially with Hurricane Melissa, a lot of products got rerouted, and containers got stuck in other islands in Jamaica for a while. But these are logistical matters that we all had to face. And every time there's a little bit of time delay on a project, especially in construction, it increases your cost. So now, understanding vendor issues, who are the people who are the companies who are supplying some of the raw materials, we pretty much have to assess if these are vendors that we could continue to work with or vendors we have to move on from. If some of the technologies, if we're able to scale that better in Grenada, how do we find better sources to get that in? But again, the main thing is getting our own people to build with these sort of technologies, build it faster and more efficiently. And the more that they have access and exposure to it, the more that they are able to be skilled on it, it means that it could be deployed on a more wider basis across the state of Grenada, therefore helping reduce the cost, because we know it's $375 and rising right now. We're building with traditional brick and mortar in Grenada. So we cannot continue to have that happen and then think that housing at the same time is going to be more affordable. We have to change path. So this is why we have to, take our time, assess this information.
Folks, Randy Dolan, project sponsor of Project 12, is telling us that the project was delayed, one, because of the telescope blast. Now, that event happened on the 1st of July, 2025. An authorized police operation to dispose of expired gel-type explosive went wrong. The unexpected detonation caused significant structural damage to over 16 homes, vehicles, and resulted in minor injuries to about 4 persons. Now, the reason for moving the explosions from the SSU camp in Point Salines to the quarry in Telescope is because, to dispose of, right? Is because nothing was happening in the quarry in Telescope and has not been happening for years. As a matter of fact, recently, we've heard the Prime Minister more than once speaking of reopening the project, the quarry, I'm sorry, and getting partnership. He spoke of as a matter of fact, he said they've gotten partner and they're going to be reopening, that is gravel and concrete, they will be reopening the quarry in Telescope. Now, tell me, Mr. Dolan, what it was that you were getting from the quarry for Project 12, what they needed from that quarry that the blast affected. And if you were getting anything from the quarry, the head office, so to speak, gravel and concrete, main property, main location is 45 minutes away. So what's the hold up? Why was there a hold up? Because of the telescope blast? We had to replay that clip about 10 times to kind of figure out if that's what he was saying. And then he spoke of the delay of containers because of Hurricane Melissa. Hurricane Melissa landed in Jamaica, folks, on the 28th of October, 2025. Mere weeks later, the houses were handed over to the government. So, what does the Hurricane Melissa and Jamaica and container have to do with the delay? When these houses started to build and should have finished long before the telescope blast, the blast in Venezuela, he spoke about that too, and Hurricane Melissa, long before. Just some big, blatant lies. And let's just say Project 12 is what we have. They're struggling now to bring us to Project 17. 12. So the blast was on the 1st of July. Melissa was on the 28th of October. No excuse. No excuse. Let's hear the final clip of Mr. Dolan.
About who would be able to afford these houses in respect of the price point, because one of the marquee campaign promises of the administration that you're associated with now is that housing should be affordable for the citizenry of the country. We have someone here who is saying that people can't afford those homes in Dunfermline. I suppose the diaspora will cover the costs. I mean, I don't know about that part of the diaspora.
No.
But let us talk about the affordability here. Is there a sort of an income range of people based on the price point that you just articulated, who this is being targeted towards?
Yes, there's an eligibility criteria.
And how much? Yes, and how much of those would include low income housing or no income? For those whose incomes may not even meet the bar to be able to afford these houses.
But what does low income mean? And I think that's what we have to define. What is low income? And then what is high
how do
income?
you define it?
Right? So what we pretty much are saying that, we understand that, in the pilot, there's going to be a specific amount that a house is going to cost, right? You have to pay for land, 4,700 plus square feet, everything else, right? We didn't include the price of infrastructure and all of that in the pilot, but you have to pay for bringing a proper home in and assembling it. So there's obviously going to be a minimum cost to do so, right? The median price points, we're looking about just over 300 for like a 3-bedroom, 300, about 380. The prices are online. The prices are listed. They're public. You can go online and see it. But we're looking at households that are income up to 7,500 EC dollars per month as a household. Obviously, Grenadian residents and citizens of Grenada. And of course, they cannot own any other property at this point because we're looking for first-time home owners, home buyers who are trying to get an opportunity to, again, have a wonderful home to live in and start building generational wealth. So, and again, because of it being the pilot, we're looking at, some of these homes we may not continue with because some of them ran a little bit higher. And then some of them are priced well enough where we could look to continue. And as we move along with the project and the technology, what we're going to use to build with, we could then start looking at scaling this up and then making modifications where we get.
So the question was, Mr. Dolan, can afford these homes? The affordability for low income earners. The 2-bedroom is $232,000. The 3-bedroom is $380,000. And the 4-bedroom is $495,905, which is $500,000. A few cents to $500,000. Is that low income prices? Or according to him, Mr. Dolan, he said he don't like to hear low income. So he gave it the name economically aligned prices. And I'm quoting it, economically aligned prices. The new name for low income. According to Mr. Dolan, there are unsold units in the Chinese housing projects. So he's sending the low income people back there. Right? Why are there unsold units? Because the low income earners cannot afford it. This NDC, Deacon Mitchell-led NDC administration took the free houses that they received, that the people received from the people, the Republic of China, the people of the Republic of China, and sell them for $55,000 for the 1-bedroom and $73,000 for the 2-bedroom. And you must get a loan. You must be able to purchase the houses from the housing authority. And that's why there are lots of empty units still because the people who really need the houses, the units, cannot afford it. And this is the state you met us in, and this is the state we're still in. The government gave Andy $2.4 or $5 million to build houses in St. Patrick. And we have mothers, single mothers with their kids, still begging for housing in St. Patrick. Moving along. On Thursday, the 28th May 2026, Grenada laid to rest a stalwart, a public servant. Public servant is not my favorite word with the servant to use when I describe public workers, but after listening to the tributes and to persons even before the funeral speak of this gentleman was indeed a servant to Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. Mr. Norman Gilbert was indeed a stalwart in the public service in Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. The outpour of graciousness I have heard coming from persons who knew him and worked with him, who served with him, I have concluded that Norman Gilbert was a servant to the people of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite Martinique. And he served with love and dignity. Unfortunately, he was not treated with love and dignity. He was not treated in a dignified manner by this Deacon Mitchell-led administration. We know that when government change, some persons you wanted removed from the job. The Prime Minister again spoke of persons being employed by merit. He also said basically that once you do your job, you have no issues. This gentleman, that every human being, everybody spoke of. I have heard not one person said one negative thing about this gentleman when it came to his work, or any other thing for that matter. But this Deacon Mitchell, NDC-led administration, victimized vindictively. For what reason? I don't know. This gentleman which resulted in his death. He was victimized in the worst ways, not because he wasn't competent, but because he was perceived to be a supporter of the new National Party. And what if he was? We are not living in a one-party state. Now here's a tribute from Ron Redhead, who was this gentleman's minister when the NDC came into office in 2022.
Good afternoon, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, today we take a moment to honor a man who devoted over 25 years of his life to serving Grenada through various departments, and who is celebrated for his commitment to sports in his community and for his instrumental role that he's played in cricket over the last number of months. Norman was the kind of public servant who never needed the spotlight to make an impact. He was not a petty man. He was serious about his work, deeply committed to the job, and carried himself with a calm that inspired confidence in those around him. Even in difficult moments, he remained steady, focused, and composed, as you heard earlier on. Those who worked with him would tell you that he believed in getting the work done, but done properly. He was disciplined, hardworking, and most importantly, dependable. He approached public service with a strong sense of responsibility and understood that the work we are doing in government is going to impact lives of people out there. What stood out most about Norman to me was that despite his quiet nature, he was truly a giant in his field. He did not have to be loud and aggressive to be respected or to be heard. His presence, his knowledge, and his work ethic spoke for him. Many people learned from him by simply looking at how he carried himself when he completed his duties, with professionalism and, most importantly, humility. Over the years, he helped to shape programs, support institutions, and contributed to the development of youth, sports, culture, and human resources in Grenada. His contribution may not always have been in a public fashion, but it was significant enough and deeply appreciated by those who knew the value of his service. Today, we remember him much, much more than just a permanent secretary. He was a good man. He was a committed public servant and someone who gave of his best both to his friends and family, but most importantly, the country.
Folks, I am convinced that this guy, Ron Redden, is a psychopath. Ron Redden is mostly responsible for the victimization and vindictive treatment that was meted out to Norman Gilbert. He made his life a living hell when NDC took office in 2022, and Norman Gilbert was the acting permanent secretary in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, where Ron Redden was placed as a minister. When he entered the Ministry of Youth and Sports, he immediately started to stress out the guy. He wanted him gone from the ministry, he said, and made it known that he wanted him gone. He did not hide it. He made a formal request to the cabinet asking for the removal of the acting permanent secretary, Norman Gilbert, from the Ministry of Youth and Sports. His request was honored. And Norman Gilbert was replaced with Alva Brown at the time. It was Ron Redden who demoted Norman Gilbert. Speaking to a colleague of Norman's who lived through it all, told a story of Ron Reddett giving Norman a certain directive as permanent secretary. And of course, Norman delivered true Norman Gilbert style. He executed as was directed. Now, as a result, there was a public outrage on the matter, and I remember it clearly. And Ron Reddett came in the news and told Grenada, told the nation that he knew nothing about the matter, that it was the PS, of course, because the PS signed the letters, right? And that disciplinary actions would be taken against him. Norman was demoted and treated with disdain. So much so, it was mentioned in the 2026 May Day speech by the president of the Public Workers Union, Daisy Hazard.
At this point, I want to invoke a name. I want to say the name Imi Chitterman. If you remember nothing of my address here today, say after me the name Im Chitterman. Im Chitterman passed away last year. But even while he was on his sickbed, removed from the position that he was in that was paying him a decent salary, pushed back into a substantive post that he had not occupied for about 10 years, continued working for Grenada. Do you know who he is? The digital revolution that we are experiencing in Grenada today. Your GTAX online, everything that you can do online, all of this was conceptualized and brought about by Im Chitterman and his team, me, your humble servant, being one of them. He did that as Chief Information Officer under the previous administration. But the monies, the projects that we were able to write and secure for Grenada into the millions of dollars. Mr. Lennox Andrews, Honorable Minister, you remember that? Because when you walked into the Ministry of Information, ICT in 2022, you said we have a lot of money to spend, and I want it spent. That was the work of Im Chitterman. And he died in silence, and we cried, because at the end he was treated badly. His work for Grenada was not rewarded, was not appreciated, because he was deemed political. And so I want to ask today, ahead of February 7th, 2027, that the first name that must appear on any list to be honored in our country for our independence in 2027 must be Im Chitterman, because he took charge of Grenada's digital revolution, and we are enjoying today the fruits of that intelligence and that brilliance that Grenada must award. I also want to say today, Mr. Norman Gilbert, rest in peace. Your passing was a tragedy, but the greatest tragedy was when, as a former teacher, attempts were made to revert you back to your substantive in a school in 2022. He was not a member of the PWU, but when he reached out to me as then PRO, I did what my union does. When he was denied representation where he should rightfully get it, we stood for him. We were not able to restore him as a PS, but with our advocacy through our PSC rep, we got his salary restored, and we got him a position of dignity. And the PSC then understood that you cannot strip workers of their dignity just because they have served this country under a previous administration. And all of us as public servants never allow anyone to strip us of our dignity, because we have a right to labor in this country under any government and any administration that the people of Grenada return to office whenever there is an election.
So there was Im Chitterman, who was victimized even on his dying bed. And of course, Norman Gilbert, who as a result of a victimization ended up with respiratory problems and died. Now, here's a tribute from cricket colleague of Norman Gilbert, president of the Windward Island Cricket Association and director on Cricket West Indies board, and the president of the Dominica Cricket Association, Clement Massili.
To all, on behalf of the Cricket West Indies president, the board of directors, management, staff, well-wishers, we extend our deepest condolences to the family, friends of Brother Norman. In similar fashion, from the directors of the Windward Islands Cricket Board, which he also served on the cricket committee, we condole with his family and, in fact, the entire island of Grenada. And why would I say, in fact, the entire island of Grenada? I am solely convinced that the passing of Norman has dealt a significant blow to your island. It's not often that I stand in adulation of a mere man or a common man or an ordinary man or even a man in a high position. But Norman, there was no exception. Norman, to me, exemplify what a true human being ought to be. His steady words, his silent confidence, and his human spirit is what I believe is a personal loss to me, because not often you find someone who is endowed with this gift. I remember Norman sitting at a meeting and we were trying to wrap our minds around a solution. How do we evaluate the coaches? I didn't know no stress was a thing, because every speaker here said, Norman said, no stress. Well, he said, no stress, Mr. President. And he opened up his laptop, connected that HDMI cord. We were at the Olympic building, and Norman had a detailed rubric as to how we should evaluate coaches. I had never spoken to him about that. And he said, Mr. Prez, you always say, who guards the guard? Well, I decided to guard the guard. And today, we are implementing that rubric to the advancement of the sport that we also love. I am certain that the volunteers in the sport of cricket will forever miss Norman's calm but calculated approach towards everything he does. I remember on April 20th, 7 days before my birthday, at 3:23, I called Norman, and uncharacteristically, he didn't answer the call. But he sent a text, I'm at the doctor. I said, best wishes with that. I hope it's not the uncomfortable thing. Because as men, we have to do that at times. Well, some do the normal test. And he giggled. He said, you are a kiss. In short time, he returned my call and he said, Prez, I have acute respiratory infection. I said, Norman, that is a stress. He said, no stress. It's just that the area where I work, we have some moldy issues. And I said, all right, well, from my past career in environmental science, we had a long discussion. I said, Norman, working remotely is a thing now. Do not chance it there, chance getting to work at home or something. On 7 o'clock on my birthday, which is the 27th, a colleague calls to say, "You heard what happened to Norman?" I said, "I thought you were telling me happy birthday, bro." He said, "Well, you're not going to have a birthday." I said, "What you mean?" He said, "Well, try calling Bato, which is Director Baptist. I tried calling Bato, didn't get Bato. Well, I know who to call. I called Keisha. The call was answered, but Keisha took about 3 minutes to answer. And then I knew that was the reality. But it took me back to January 16th, earlier this year, where we had to also lay to rest another director of the Windward Islands Cricket Board, who was a good friend. And I don't know how popular it is for someone to live long enough to quote themselves, but I'll share it here in Grenada. And I quote from one named Clement Marcelin. "Life is ephemeral, a vapor, and frail as wax, but it becomes an uncut diamond when we learn to acknowledge another man's shortfall, but glorifies his strengths."
Now, Norman Gilbert was the president of the Grenada Cricket Association as well. This Deacon Mitchell-led NDC administration removed Norman Gilbert from the office of permanent secretary, demoted him, and put him in a room full of mold, what we call a 2x4, full of mold, which eventually killed him. He died from respiratory infection. Now, he went to the hospital. He was hospitalized for it. And he never got better. Now, here's another tribute to Norman Gilbert. This time from a former colleague and villager, Royden Bihari, who was youth coordinator in the Ministry of Youth and Sports when Norman Gilbert was there as acting permanent secretary. Bihari was also victimized, had his job terminated, to be exact. Now, as I said, there are those who would have to be removed. But again, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. But when you listen to Ron Redhead, how he spoke highly of Mr. Norman Gilbert, you'd never believe he was involved, and he was the main factor in what have Norman Gilbert 6 feet deep as we speak.
While we do not want today to become about the bitterness, I still have to remind you about the treatment given to Norman. And I trust and I pray that the treatment that Norman have gotten from some people won't be repeated to some other public servants. He's stressed for years. And down to 2 months ago, at the bakery, Norman said to me, "Bihari, I'm thinking of giving up. It's too much for me." And I said to Norman, "Norman, just hold strong." People don't know, but Norman stressed so much to the point where some people will watch him every single day and don't know the pain and the weight he had been carrying in his heart. And I say to the people around, don't treat another public servant like Norman, because Norman was not someone that needed to be treated the way he was treated. And I cannot leave here today and pretend as though I don't know the treatment given to Norman. He was a stalwart for what he believed in and did not deserve the way he was treated from demotions to be demotions, from demotions one after the other, from taking him out in his good office and putting him in an office that was nothing close to a human being. I said to you, don't do it to him. Don't do it, please. Naaman did not deserve the treatment he got. And I say to every one of you today that it bleeds my heart to be crying here. I'm not someone that cries so much. But Naaman will continue to be in my heart. But the way in which he was treated, the way he called me in the night, and I have to say to Jesus, Naaman is going through a lot, just talk to him. Some people don't know, but to God be the glory. Good things he have done, and the longest prayer have an amen. But Naaman will be remembered for the service to young people, the service to cricketers, the service to Grenada, and the service to young people. Don't do another public servant what you have done to Naaman. I say to you, take care. But Naaman will continue living in my heart. But the way in which he was treated by this government is something that was uncalled for. I say to you, don't treat him so. I thank you.
I should have asked you to walk with your handkerchief and your tissue paper as well. This brings tears to my eyes every time I listen to it. It took the death of Norman Gilbert for the Ministry of Education to react. And in a press release, Ministry of Education, Grenada, a press release, temporary suspension of service at Physical Ministry of Education location, St. George's, Grenada, June the 2nd, 2026. The Ministry of Education advises the public that effective tomorrow, Wednesday, June the 3rd, which is yesterday, there will be a temporary suspension of service at our physical location for an initial period of 1.5 weeks to facilitate the efficient excursion of environmental interventions at the Ministry of Education building in Tantine, St. George's. The Ministry of Education, which is to assure the public that services will continue, but will simply be provided remotely via phone calls and emails. We do not anticipate that this period of inconvenience will be unnecessarily extended, and the public will be duly updated on the restoration of regular service. For your convenience, please find our contact information on page 2, which will allow clients to continue assessing service during this period. What it is that they put workers home, sent workers home to work because of the mold in the ministry. Poor Norman had to suffer the loss of his life. He was a guinea pig, I guess. He had to die for this to happen. This Deacon Mitchell-led administration is a reactive administration, always running to close the stable after the horse done galloping down the road. Folks, Norman and Chitterman were not the only ones. There was the head of social development, of the social development department, and coordinator of gender and family, in the Ministry of Carriacou and Petite Martinique Affairs. Venetia Cudjoe, employed with the ministry for over 18 years and was head of the department for over 10 years. 3 days after the NDC took office, she received a letter letting her know that she was no longer the head of the department and that they really didn't have a space in that ministry for her. They removed her and gave the job to one of their supporters. That was P.S. Javon Williams at the time. He read the riot act to Venetia Cudjoe and other members of that same department. Remember the Carriacou Five? They all was in that department. They victimized most of the workers in that department. The department ended up with 3 workers. And I was told from one of the workers that the PS said at the time, he's going to dismantle that department. Venetia Cudjoe was removed from her substantive position, was not given a role in the ministry. She was at home waiting on a call as to where she was going to be placed, not knowing what her fate was. She started to worry. She started to stress. She already had a heart condition. She had heart issues. And stressing over the removal from her job, it just made it worse. So she fell ill. She was hospitalized in Carriacou. When they couldn't help her there, she was transferred to Grenada to the ICU department. And she never returned to Carriacou alive. She died with a broken heart. Folks, the level of inhumanity meted out to some workers in the service is unbelievable. Unbelievable. It went further. Complaints coming from His Majesty's prisons suggest an erosion of the system and the rotting away of the moral fabric of that institution. On the coming of this Deacon Mitchell-led administration, the sitting Commissioner of Prisons, Rupert Nichols, was forced into retirement. Acting Commissioner Rupert Nichols was given an ultimatum from the Ministry of National Security. He had an extra 400 days vacation inside. He was told to take all his vacation. After his vacation, if he returned to work, he will be reverted to his substantive position. But if he retires, he would be confirmed in the position of commissioner. So if he, while he was on vacation, this 400 days plus, in excess of 400 days, if he just stayed, they would retire him as commissioner, because remember, he was acting. And so he would get a decent pension. If not, they're telling him if he come back to work, he would be demoted. Mr. Rupert Nichols joined the government service as an employee at the prisons in the bakery at the age of 18 and worked his way up. 35 years of his life, he was already been victimized and he knew it would continue if he returned. So he opted out. He grieved to death and died before his 400 days on holiday was over. He died at the age of 53. Commissioner Rupert Nichols was replaced with an officer who was removed from the prison by the former administration on the arrival of the Deacon Mitchell-led administration, with Deacon Mitchell as Minister for National Security, responsible for national security. They reinstated back the officer to the prisons who was on investigation when they came into office. He was removed for the escaping of prisoners under his watch, several. He was also investigated for corruption. He was incompetent, but the NDC reinstated him as commissioner, a magnet for corruption, crooks, and conmen. Without proper investigation as to why he was removed from the prison in the first place, they reinstated him. Since in the office of the commissioner, 3 inmates escaped, all because of negligence and corruption. Under his watch, a female officer had a child for an inmate. The commissioner's secretary is having affairs with officers and inmates, causing commotion, husband visiting the prisons, confusion, bacchanal, all of this happening at His Majesty's prison. Folks, recently, thousands of dollars was found hidden in the canteen, which cannot be accounted for. A male chief accepted 25 cases of drinks from one of the biggest notorious inmates for his wedding. This officer is no example for other officers nor inmates, but he was still promoted based on nepotism, corruption at the highest levels, says the officer reporting. And all of this is coming from officers who are working at the prisons. Several allegations have been made against the chief officer who reportedly accepted the 25 cases of drinks from the inmate, drinks for his wedding. He threw water on a female officer who made repeated sexual advances towards female officers on the compound and abused his authority against officers who refused his advances. One female officer reportedly filed a complaint of sexual abuse against him. The matter apparently reached the Public Service Commission. However, no disciplinary action was taken and he was later promoted. A female officer was also allegedly caught sending drugs out of the prison through a former inmate. Despite the seriousness of the situation, she was reportedly fined $50 and is now in line to become the next female chief officer. While another officer sent back an ex-inmate who went to visit the prison carrying coconut filled with drugs back in the public. So she did find the drugs, and instead of confiscating it allowed the ex-inmate to go back with the drugs in the coconut. Did not alert the police, nor was the drug confiscated. That officer too was promoted within weeks of the incident. The commissioner disobeyed all orders given to him by the security advisor to the Prime Minister, the security advisor to the Prime Minister, and dealt with the matter on the way. The commissioner disobeyed all orders given to him by the security advisor to the Prime Minister and dealt with the matter the way he and his advisor wanted to deal with it. This officer remains at the prison, was never ever suspended, and she is waiting to take over the female prison on the retirement of the present female chief. According to the information reaching me, is that the said officer is at war with an inmate since she asked him to lend her some money and he refused. Now I know this song as fantasy. This is a song as real life. But folks, you would not believe some of the things. I cannot repeat it on air. I cannot repeat it on air. I'm trying my best. I try my best to sift. However, she remains in high position. She is seen daily in front of the commissioner's vehicle driving around. Presently, there is a female officer who is scared for her life. It was reported that she saw an inmate using a phone and she reported it. She is now faced with discomfort and pressure from some of the other female officers, since they are the ones responsible for bringing the phone inside the female prison. The commissioner is aware. He knows who has the phone, yet he hasn't moved on it. Folks, there is more. There are reports of inappropriate relationship between officials and inmates. People seeing officers coming out of inmate rooms. In another matter, a female inmate reportedly became pregnant by a senior officer while in prison and was pressured to terminate the pregnancy. Illegal substances were reportedly discovered beneath the commissioner's office. The police was never contacted and no formal investigation was conducted. Another officer who reportedly verbally abused and insulted a police inspector was also promoted despite his misconduct. Approximately, $30,000 was discovered hidden within the financial office by a female officer who reportedly could not account for the funds. Instead of disciplinary action being taken, she proceeded on 1 week leave. She too was promoted. The recent promotions within the prisons, within the prison department, were not based on merit, professionalism, or discipline, but instead influenced by favoritism, corruption, and personal connections. A review of the files of the 44 promoted officers would reveal that many had previous disciplinary charges or misconduct records. Officers are therefore calling on the Governor General to sanction an independent investigation into the running of His Majesty's prison. Many believe the promotions rewarded in discipline and corruption rather than integrity and professionalism. The commissioner's leadership has caused severe emotions and psychological distress among many honest officers, with some experiencing suicidal thoughts because of corruption, victimization, and unfair treatment within the department. Further concerns have been raised regarding the involvement of a member of the Grenada 17 who serves as an advisor to the commissioner. Officers have observed this individual sitting in the commissioner's chair, handling official correspondence from the Ministry of National Security and influencing promotion decisions. It is said that he played a major role in preparing the promotion list and advising the commissioner on department matters. There are also reports of officers refusing to work at night shift at the prisons while being granted permission to work night shift at private events as security. Folks, like all the other departments and entities, institutions, it's peckamel. Everyone doing their own thing, no discipline within the departments. The departments has deteriorated significantly, including His Majesty's Prison over the past 4 years under the Deacon Mitchell-led administration. A message to the Prime Minister: if nothing is done as soon as possible to fix the situation at the prisons, soon the honest officers will turn corrupt as well in order to keep their job. The good officers are victimized and the corrupt ones are rewarded. The good officers are calling for the removal of the Commissioner of Prisons and his corrupt officers. The officers at the prisons is calling on the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell, and the Minister for National Security to pay attention to the prisons before it's too late, before the prisons is brought to a state of disrepute. Folks, they mash up the prisons too. There are so much more that is happening at the prisons. It is clear to state the state of Grenada is not governed by persons who know how to govern. They are incompetent. The cabinet of Grenada is incompetent, with no transparency and accountability. And the people would definitely decide what happens at the next polls for the next general elections. They came in as novices and they're going to leave as novices. Folks, we're about to wrap up, but I have some questions that I need to ask the Prime Minister, Deacon Mitchell. Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell, just wondering about the breakdown you promised us on the spending for Project Polaris that was in the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 2025, amounting to $22 million. You did promise us in that town hall in New York, when you were questioned by the gentleman, that you were going to have a breakdown for us. So we're asking for that breakdown. Prime Minister, how much was spent on the sword turning for Project Polaris? Who or which company did the branding for the graphics billboards And how much did it cost the people and the government of Grenada? Is it in excess of $600,000? Does that sound familiar to you, sir? Because that's the figure branded out there. Payable to Orlando Romaine. Is this true? Were there bids for that project, the branding project? Because as I understand it, there were bids that came at much cheaper than $600,000, like $200,000. So was the tendering a mama guy? What is the government of Grenada's financial arrangement with Renault Company, Prime Minister? Why are we paying Renault triple times and quadruple times what another company was going or did charge, as a matter of fact? How much was spent on Unleash? To date, there was no audit. Unleash was held on May the 12th, 2023, 3 years ago. And how about the 50th anniversary celebrations and the $22.5 million spent on the celebrations? 2 years ago, the people await an audited report with a breakdown of the spendings. All this, and we are about to host another celebration, the Diaspora Homecoming. By the way, on May the 30th, 2026, Grenada experienced another first. 2 suicide by hanging on the same day. 2 young men, not connected. One from the Grooms, Dr. Grooms in Point Celine, St. George, and another from St. John. On May the 3rd, there was another suicide by hanging, which brought it to 3 hanging in the month of May. In the month of April, on April the 20th, 2026, there was another suicide by hanging, which brought it to 4 suicides in 36 days. All 4 were male citizens, 3 young men and 1 older gentleman. It seems like our young men are crying out for help. What's the plan, NDC? What's the plan to save our young men? In another news, Grenada is the gambling capital of the OACS among the youths. Another first for Grenada. And to report from Carriacou, members are reporting that Build Back Better House in Lauriston, Carriacou, a whole broadside just fell down. Folks, the NDC is giving their supporters and friends and families jobs to do that they're not capable of doing. It's called nepotism. They continue to do it. These days it's even worse. But these are people, they can say, I'll give you a job. It's 10,000. Here's a check. Change it for 20 and bring 10 to me. It's been happening with contractors. It continued to happen. Well, these people are not even contractors. But continue this in our next episode. Folks, that's a wrap on today's episode of Simon Says. It's always a pleasure conversing with you. keeping them honest. Thank you for viewing yet another episode of Simon Says, where facts come first. I'm your host, Jenny Simon. See you next week, same time, same place. Always remember, a better Grenada is possible. Thank you for tuning in to Simon Says. To ensure that you never miss an episode, click subscribe and make sure to turn on the notifications by clicking on the notification bell icon. See you at the next episode.